Welcome to the Story Lens YouTube channel, featuring stories that speak. I'm sure you've heard the news. But the tragedy of Air India Flight AI 171 is a story that deserves to be told in full. On the afternoon of Thursday, June 12, 2025, Air India Flight AI 171 began its journey from Ahmedabad's Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel International Airport, destined for London Gatwick. The Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner, registered as VT-A&B, was heavily fueled for the long-haul flight, carrying 230 passengers and 12 crew members. Among those on board were travelers from various nations, including 169 Indian, 53 British, 7 Portuguese, and 1 Canadian citizen, all embarking on what should have been a routine trip. The flight represented a bridge between continents, filled with people heading home, on vacation, or for business. Their individual stories now tragically intertwined. The departure seemed normal as the aircraft, a veteran of 11.5 years with over 41,000 flight hours, accelerated down the full length of runway 23. It lifted into the sky at 1:39 p.m. Indian Standard Time, a moment captured by many onlookers at the bustling airport. However, the initial ascent was anything but ordinary. Instead of climbing steadily, the plane appeared to struggle, its nose pointing upwards while its tail seemed to sag ominously. Observers and flight tracking data would later confirm that the aircraft was in immediate distress, failing to gain the necessary altitude and speed for a stable climb. Less than a single minute after its wheels left the tarmac, the pilots of Flight AI 171 issued a desperate mayday call, signaling a catastrophic emergency to air traffic controllers. By this point, the aircraft had only managed to reach a maximum altitude of a mere 625 feet. Flight tracking data, which suddenly ceased at 080851 UTC, showed the plane had begun an uncontrolled descent, falling at a rate of approximately 475 feet per minute. The landing gear, which should have been retracted shortly after takeoff, remained visibly down, a key detail that investigators would later scrutinize as a potential indicator of a severe technical malfunction or a crew overwhelmed by a rapidly escalating crisis. The final moments were terrifyingly brief. The struggling Dreamliner disappeared behind a row of buildings near the airport perimeter, its engines roaring with a sound that eyewitnesses described as unnatural. A moment later, a massive fireball erupted into the sky, followed by a thick, towering column of black smoke that was visible for miles around. The flight, which had been airborne for just a few minutes, had ended in a catastrophic crash less than a mile from where it had begun, turning a day of travel into one of profound national tragedy. The aircraft's final devastating plunge brought it down directly onto the BJ Medical College and Hospital Doctors' Hostel, located in the densely populated Meghani Nagar area of Ahmedabad. The impact was cataclysmic, instantly transforming a place of study and rest into a scene of unimaginable horror. The fully fueled wings of the Boeing 787 ignited upon impact, engulfing the multi-story building in flames and sending debris flying across a wide radius. Residents and passers-by were jolted by an earth-shattering explosion that many initially mistook for a bomb, followed by the terrifying realization that a massive passenger jet had fallen from the sky right in their midst. Eyewitnesses who had been watching the plane's troubled ascent described a harrowing sight. They reported seeing the aircraft flying dangerously low, its movements sluggish and labored, as if it were fighting against an invisible force pulling it back down to Earth. One witness recalled seeing the plane's tail hanging unusually low before it vanished behind the buildings, a sight that was immediately followed by the deafening crash. The subsequent fireball confirmed their worst fears, and the air was quickly filled with the sounds of sirens, screams, and the continuous crackling of the raging fire that now consumed the hostel and the wreckage. The immediate aftermath was a scene of chaos and bravery. Local residents and people from nearby shops rushed towards the inferno, desperate to help despite the immense danger posed by the fire and the unstable structure. They joined the first responders in a frantic effort to pull people from the rubble and the burning building. The crash had occurred in a residential area, directly impacting the lives of dozens of medical students who were inside the hostel at the time. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of jet fuel, creating a disorienting and hazardous environment for both rescuers and survivors. For the students and staff at the BJ Medical College, the disaster was a direct and personal tragedy. The hostel, a place that should have been a sanctuary, became the epicenter of the crash. Around 50 to 60 students were initially hospitalized, suffering from burns, injuries from falling debris, and smoke inhalation. At least 4 or 5 students were reported missing in the immediate hours following the crash, while several others were admitted to intensive care with critical injuries. The crash not only took the lives of those on the plane, but also inflicted deep and lasting wounds on the ground community. In a disaster that claimed the lives of 241 people on board and numerous others on the ground, a single story of survival emerged as a fragile beacon of hope. Vishwashkumar Ramesh, a British national seated in Seat 11A, was found alive amidst the smouldering wreckage of Flight AI-171. Rescuers pulled him from the debris in a state of shock, but conscious. He was immediately rushed to the hospital, where his condition was remarkably stabilized. His survival against such overwhelming odds was deemed nothing short of a miracle by the emergency crews who worked tirelessly at the devastating crash site. From his hospital bed, Mr. Ramesh provided a chillingly simple account of the flight's final moments, offering the first and only perspective from inside the doomed aircraft. His words painted a picture of a sudden and violent event that left no time for passengers to comprehend what was happening. 30 seconds after takeoff, there was a loud noise, and then the plane crashed, he was quoted as saying. This brief statement suggests a catastrophic failure that occurred almost immediately after becoming airborne, a detail that aligns with the flight data showing the plane's inability to climb. The death toll from the tragedy was staggering, marking one of the deadliest aviation accidents in recent history. All 241 of the other souls on Flight AI-171, including media group, empty airplane seats, airline crew memorial, rows of seats in destroyed aircraft at stock at distribute_equally, 229 passengers and the 12-person crew perished in the crash. Among the victims was the former Chief Minister of Gujarat, Vijay Rupani, whose presence on the flight added another layer of shock and grief for the nation. The passenger manifest told a story of diverse lives cut short, including media group, collage of diverse passengers, airport terminal with travelers, family photos and personal items at memorial at stock at distribute_equally, a nurse from Kerala named Ranjitha Gopakumar, families on vacation, and professionals on business trips, all lost in an instant. On the ground, the tragedy continued to unfold as emergency services worked to account for everyone. The crash claimed the lives of several medical students in the hostel, with the final death toll on the ground pending the difficult process of recovery and DNA identification from the wreckage. The total number of fatalities was confirmed to be at least 290 people, making it a mass casualty event on an immense scale. For the families of the victims, both on the plane and on the ground, the long and painful process of grieving and waiting for answers had just begun. As smoke still billowed from the crash site, a massive emergency response operation was launched. 9 teams from the National Disaster Response Force, alongside personnel from the Border Security Force and the Indian Army, were deployed to lead the search and rescue efforts. A green corridor was swiftly established by traffic police to ensure that ambulances could transport the injured to hospitals without delay. Ahmedabad's airport was temporarily closed to all air traffic, allowing emergency services unrestricted access, and to secure the area before it was partially reopened for limited flights later in the day. The investigation into the cause of the crash began almost immediately. India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau and the Directorate General of Civil Aviation took charge of the probe. A crucial breakthrough came when search teams located the aircraft's flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder, commonly known as the black box, on the rooftop of the destroyed hostel. These vital pieces of equipment were secured and handed over to the AAIB, holding the key to understanding the sequence of events that led to the pilot's mayday call and the subsequent crash. Leaders from India and around the world expressed their profound shock and sorrow. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi described the incident as heartbreaking, while UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer called the scenes from Ahmedabad devastating and confirmed that British crisis teams were being activated to support the families of the 53 British victims. In a gesture of support, Air India's parent company, the Tata Group, announced a compensation of rupees 1 crore for the family of each person who died in the crash, acknowledging the immense loss suffered by so many. The crash of Flight AI-171 is a significant event in aviation history, marking the first fatal accident involving a Boeing 787 Dreamliner and Air India's deadliest since 2010. The investigation will be meticulous, examining every possibility from dual engine failure and mechanical issues to human error or fuel contamination. A technical team from Boeing is expected to join the probe, which comes amid existing scrutiny of the 787's manufacturing processes. A final report is not expected for at least a year, but for now, the focus remains on the victims, the survivors, and the search for answers to prevent such a tragedy from ever happening again. This is the Story Lens.